Now here at UK Construction Week, there are 7 different stages and there are expert speakers talking across them all, and I have one of them right here. The lovely Ruth Haynes from the Quadrant Building Group is here, who has just finished a talk all around structural building collapse right here on the CPD stage. Oh, that was a mouthful, we got it all out. Ruth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
That's okay.
How did the talk go?
Well, I think it's fine. What I realised as I was doing it was actually quite technical, and I wasn't sure that I'd warned people enough off at the beginning, but there were quite a few sort of engineering students and quite technical people in the audience, so that was okay. And you know, people can take out of it what they want, so.
Absolutely, and I have to say, I mean, the audience, it wasn't a small audience, that was completely full, which was so nice. So
and no one left halfway through either.
Yeah, I guess when you're doing that and you see people stand up, that must be quite distracting.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Brilliant. So let's go back to the talk then, all around structural building collapse. Could you perhaps in a couple of sentences sum up some of the key takeaways from your presentation?
Okay, I mean, I think one of the takeaways is structural engineers are a slightly hidden profession. Luckily, no one makes television programmes about us. And it's because the majority of structural engineers are doing their job is why our building stock is safe for people, for the public and for homeowners. So that's sort of the first takeaway. But the sort of second takeaway is there's always an opportunity to get it wrong, and therefore you know, the approved documents and the building regulations are the reason why our UK housing stock and buildings are okay. Because in the more developing countries where things are less regulated or badly regulated, there are a lot more problems.
Okay, I mean I think like you said, it's one of those issues that from the outside you don't think is an issue because it's being so well looked after on the inside in this country. Can I ask then, at Quadrant Building Control, what are some of your main sort of goals? What are some of the things that you get up to really on a day-to-day basis for people who perhaps aren't aware?
Okay, so Quadrant Building Control is an approved inspector. So the majority of my colleagues are building control inspectors, and I'm actually the sort of only engineer within the company. So they have very different roles to me. They're out on site, they're checking that the buildings they're going to approve effectively comply to all aspects of the building regs. My role is just to look at Part A structure, and so projects get referred to me based on a risk-based assessment, and I check other engineers' designs. And I probably look at 1,000 projects a year.
Oh, wow, okay, so busy.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to say the least. And that's fantastic, and obviously with new regulations coming in, you know, all the time really, how do you find that affects some of the work that you and the team does? Is it something that you're constantly having to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, the building regulations have changed a lot this year. They have had a lot of impact on my colleagues and also our clients. Part A, my bit hasn't actually changed that much, so I'm sort of safe. But yeah, fire and ventilation and heat, they've all changed, I think, this year. But you would need to ask my colleagues. I mean, luckily we have a lot of very well qualified people, and we have people keeping an eye out for it. But in terms of our workload, there was a very big change in June. So a load of people were submitting projects just before June, so things were quite hard work then.
Yeah, oh no, I can only imagine. Is it quite nice? I mean, obviously we had the pandemic. Did you find that had an impact on the industry, and how is it, I guess, coming back from that?
Yeah, I mean, construction was one of those industries that didn't have to stop. But I mean, there have been some impacts. So a lot of companies did furlough staff because I think there's so much uncertainty about cash flow. Then, of course, a lot of materials stopped being built during the COVID period. So there have been supply chain issues. So, I mean, a while back, no one could get a wind post or something. So it has had an impact. But I mean, I think people in construction were quite relieved to be able to carry on. I remember being on site the first day in January when schools had closed again, and everyone was there eating Quality Street. I think people were just relieved not to be at home with their children. I know I was. So I think we were lucky that we were allowed to carry on going.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess as well, it's an industry that doesn't stop. It's an industry that is constantly evolving, you know, pandemic or not, coming out of it or not. And like you said, June this year was particularly busy for you. What do you see sort of moving forward about any trends, or, you know, we've got new regulations. Is there anything that we need to keep an eye out within the industry for?
Yeah, I mean, building control is after post-Grenfell. I mean, building control is regulatory, but possibly things had got quite slack. So the regulatory environment is really important post-Grenfell. It should have been before. And I think a lot of local authority building controls have struggled with staff, so they're very overstretched. In private building control, to some extent, we're luckier because we can choose to not take on work. But I mean, the issues are going to be the regulatory environment constantly changes, but that's good. You want your career to constantly change. There is an issue with people being too old and retiring, but Quadrant has started to sort of have in-house training, so we're training up. Actually, a lot of the people have been with the company in admin roles and they've got quite into building control, so they're now retraining in technical roles, and I don't quite know how it works, but they're sort of doing part-time university degrees and stuff. So, but I mean, I've been working for 25 years and I've been told constantly that there's an issue with people retiring, so I think it's just one of those things we have to live with, and we seem to survive. But I used to be the youngest person on site, and now I feel that I'm the oldest person if I go on site, so there must be younger people coming in. But I mean, also leaving Europe has created issues with labour, because a lot of that combined with the pandemic, I think a lot of people from Eastern Europe sort of had to make a decision on what country to be in, and that stopped labour movement a bit. But you know, life is constantly changing, so.
It's quite, I mean, the challenges obviously are there, but I mean, it's absolutely amazing that at Quadrant you're doing that training scheme, and it's so lovely to see people who perhaps didn't have an interest in the industry going in as an admin, probably not thinking much about it, but then actually going, no, this is my career.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And I did a sort of online training thing with our sort of new people, and I don't know, they were all young sort of girls. It just felt like it was quite exciting actually to have an all-female meeting in construction.
Because I mean, it is notoriously a male-heavy industry. So are you seeing a bit of a change? I know you mentioned there having a female meeting, which is wonderful, but are you seeing that across the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has changed. When I did my engineering degree, only 15% of us were female. My daughter's just started doing an engineering degree, and she's gone into mechanical, which has always been more male-heavy, and actually she's got female professors and things. But yeah, I think our Quadrant's way of sort of training is exciting, and I just quite like seeing. I quite like that sort of seeing career development. So you know, you might have left school at 18, gone into a local admin job, and then suddenly discovered there was this whole industry that no one spoke to you about. And I'm a massive advocate of construction. I think it's a great industry. I mean, I've managed to do all sorts of things that could potentially completely mess up my career, like have kids, work part-time, work abroad. I'm trying to think what else I've done that might mess up my career. But I've still had a really interesting career, and yeah, enough for my oldest daughter to want to go into engineering.
That's so exciting. It must be lovely as well to be able to pass it on down the generations.
Yeah, although when she was doing her A-levels, I realised that if I had to retake them, I would do very badly. But there was one physics question I helped her with, and I still feel quite proud of that. 3 months on or 4 months on.
That'll be a nice story you can tell for years to come.
I want to do an A-level physics question. Yeah.
Amazing. Listen, Ruth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Pop down and have a little chat with Ruth if you've got any questions here for the Quadrant Group.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.